everybody, this is Chris. I'm back with CookBook. It's April. I'm here in Toledo with Jonie McIntire. Congratulations, Darren, on your daughter last month. We did not film at AWP, due to unforeseen events, but congratulations to everyone that was at AWP and all the Sundress authors. Today we're going to be talking about some of Jonie's work. She's got a couple chapbooks, one from Night Ballet Press, the other's from Finishing Line. She's also edited some work. She's really involved in the community up here in Toledo, and we're going to look into exactly how a person might end up trying to get into, more community activism and stuff like that. So we're also going to be cooking a pretty delicious quiche. And Jonie, do you want anything to add?
Not necessarily.
It's raining. It's raining here. We also have a cameraman right now. So
yeah. We're using community already, even in the taping of this.
So with that said, we'll be back and enjoy. Hi everybody, I'm back with Jonie. We're here to cook quiche. Now, what do you usually put in your quiche?
You know what? I love eggs. You can do anything with them. So I really, I also have a strange relationship with dark greens. I love leafy greens.
Like kale?
Kale is
spinach.
awesome.
Okay.
Spinach is okay. It's all right. Everybody likes spinach of the dark greens, but I especially love arugula. Because it's peppery and it's dark and it has some flavor. It has some body to it. So I like to wilt greens and then add other stuff and cheese, and that's quiche, pretty much.
Now we're going to be adding some beets. Now,
yeah.
As I understand it, some of this is already pre-cooked. We're using pickled beets.
Yeah, actually, we can.
Okay.
When we can. And so I canned some beets, and I've used fresh beets before and grated them, and that's not bad because they don't really have to cook very long.
Yeah,
when you grate them.
Down, yeah.
But I think if we have the green and then these are pickled, but they're not, it's like a beet, it's not heavily pickled like dilled or anything. So I think it'll go nicely with the arugula, and then I'm gonna have some goat cheese, and this is actually like a garlic and herb kind of goat cheese. It was marked down because that's usually what I buy. But
do you put an acid in there, like a lemon juice or anything like that, or
the
just
beet? I think
with the vinegar?
Will kind of, and the goat cheese is softer than you think.
Yeah.
And the arugula is not like kale. Kale is so, they're heavy leaves, so there's a bitterness. And arugula is not like that. It's like, I don't know if you ever use rocket, which is, or like dandelion greens.
Yeah,
they're not, like spinach is so watery.
Right.
If it's raw, it's fine, but as soon as you cook it, collapses, right? Swiss chard has a little bit more substance to it, but not much. Yeah. And then you get into this arugula, rocket, dandelion greens thing where they're smaller greens, so they hold up, but
they're kind of in between.
They're kind of in between, and then you've got kale and mustard greens, or these things that you have to cook all day in order to break them down. So, so this is, arugula is delightfully not in that realm. Okay. It has the pepperiness and that it tastes green, but not you're not chewing at it all day.
So let's go ahead and let's get started here. Let's
So here are some of the steps.
Okay.
Some of the steps are to cut up. I do like to have garlic in it. I like to have garlic in everything. But I brown it a little first. Then the arugula, we actually sort of wilt down a little bit.
After you've browned the...
After we've browned and actually I can leave it all together.
Okay.
Because it's all going to kind of cook together. I'm going to dice up some of the beets, and I'm just going to, and then I'm going to start layering stuff and
Okay.
put it in the oven. This is what's lovely about quiche.
Okay.
It's really
And now
quite
we're going to
simple.
use flour tortillas, wheat
Oh,
tortillas.
let me tell you why I'm a genius. Okay, so one of the difficulties with cooking with eggs, and here's something that I found here. I love eggs and I love quiche, but and Adrian will eat quiche, but like the kids are out. They're super not interested. And it's probably not healthy to eat a whole quiche by yourself for breakfast.
Right.
Right. So you have leftovers. But if you have a kid, traditional quiche, you have, normally what you would have is a pie crust, like a pie crust, which is very either shortening or butter
Yeah, it's
based.
heavy. Yeah.
So that's all of your calories, and usually it's kind of too much. Like I don't need extra. I didn't need that much. And then the other problem is the top gets that sort of rubbery. When it's fresh from the oven, it's fine. But once it's cooled off, it gets that sort of thick rubbery thing that happens with eggs. So there you go. If you are a genius like me and have eaten a lot of bad quiche and then got better at it, uncooked flour tortillas. And you could use cooked flour tortillas. Those are fine too. I've tried corn tortillas, but they're a little thick. Especially the uncooked corn tortillas are a little thick. And I'm not at the point where I'm going to make my own.
Okay.
Haven't reached that point.
All right.
But I've tried different things. But and then the other thing that I do, and what you do is you have one on the bottom, and then you have one on top. And so it almost treats it like a tart. There's probably another, probably another, I imagine Italians have some kind of, egg bake that has a crust on top too. But like a tart, so that there's a crust on top, a crust on bottom, and the sides are all touching the pan, so they really aren't a problem. They don't have that weird gummy, egg quality.
Okay.
So it works out nicely. So we'll see if it works, and if you feel that I've solved this incredible egg problem. But to start with, I am going to cut up some garlic.
Okay.
That is going to be my first order of business. So,
Well, I'll tell you, while you're doing that, do you mind talking a little more about your activism here?
I will, absolutely. So, I moved to Toledo 20 years ago. I know you're thinking I must have been 5 years old, but I was not. I was much older than that. I actually, before then, I had gone to college at Antioch in Yellow Springs, Ohio.
Okay.
And ran out of money. Went there for 2 years.
I've been there too. So.
Ran out of money. And then, because apparently I don't understand which places are expensive, then I moved to San Francisco with some friends of mine, right?
Wow.
And I went to New College of California for a semester and then ran out of money again and just had to work for a while. So I lived there for a couple of years and then decided I really need to go back to school and kind of just decided to move to Ohio. And I wanted to pick, I just randomly sort of picked Toledo.
Really? So
Yeah.
now you were living in the state before you went to Yellow Springs, was it? Or?
Yeah, I graduated from Marion, Ohio.
Okay.
From high school in Marion.
Okay. That's Southern Ohio, correct?
That is middle
Mid-ish.
Southern.
Ohio.
Ohio.
Okay.
Marion,
I'm
well known
Cleveland,
for Marion Correctional.
Yeah.
Mansfield
Okay.
might
Right.
be
That
in
rings
that
a bell, yeah.
kind of neighborhood. Delaware.
Yeah.
Those are some neighboring areas. But so yeah, I went to high school in Marion, Ohio. Went to Antioch, and then moved. I think I'm only going to stick with this much.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with this much. But
should we be getting the pan hot at all, or anything like that, or?
yeah,
No,
that's
not yet.
thoughtful.
Okay.
That's a thoughtful thing. We could do that. What else do I need to think about here? This is already washed, so I don't have to worry about it.
Okay.
Yeah, we can start getting this.
Get some oil in there.
So I so anyway, so I was in San Francisco, and when I had started college, I was political science major.
Oh wow, okay.
Right. I wanted to be a public defender. I wanted to do something in that kind of field. But I always had written some in high school. Not necessarily focusing on poetry. I liked plays. Actually, I think I was much more interested in theater and plays.
Okay.
But lived in San Francisco, tried to go to a few open mics and go to some events, but it was sort of, they didn't really need me, you know.
Yeah,
it was easy to get lost.
A big city like that, it's like really impartial.
It was already going,
yeah.
so I kind of didn't find any niche there. But what I did find was, you know, I was looking for a job, and I joined Sane in the Nuclear Weapons Freeze, and I was a canvasser. Don't take this job, by the way. This is a terrible job. But it doesn't pay at all, and I think I only did it for like a month. And I really, honestly, I don't think I ever got paid. But you go around and you ask for money for donations for, and Sane in the Nuclear Weapons Freeze was about nuclear weapons proliferation and not, you know, just stopping the arms race and all of that. So, but it was interesting because I was in that, I got to see different parts of San Francisco. So, you know, here's where doing something involved in the community kind of opens up the city to you,
right.
You know?
You learn about it at the same time that you're exploring.
Absolutely, different neighborhoods and how people act, and you know, just it was really interesting. But then, you know, I wanted to go back to school, and I moved to Toledo. And when I moved to Toledo 20 years ago, it was less economically well off than it is now.
Yeah, like a lot of the Midwest.
Like yes, like yeah. Everything, and it was very. You know, in San Francisco, everybody says hi to you. Everybody's new.
Okay.
But when I moved to Toledo, at that point, that was not true. Mm-hmm. You know, everybody's already here. What are you doing?
Yeah.
You know, you're kind of in the
Do
way.
you have a spatula, maybe a rubber spatula?
I do. It's hanging on the wall right behind you. So I moved here, and it was sort of, you know, not as friendly, but two groups that I got in with and made all the difference. Mm-hmm. One was the A Zone, which was an anarchist kind of group.
Okay.
The Autonomous Zone. There was one in Chicago, and it was sort of a little bit of a movement going on at the time. And so there was one in Toledo, and I got involved in that. And we put on like a freak circus, and it was just a nice hangout place. So there were people who hung out who were in high school, mm-hmm. and people who were college age. And it was downtown, and it was just sort of a neutral, you know, we talked about urban farming and stuff like that before there were
yeah. When was this?
More
like
formal. This
90s?
is 20 years ago,
okay.
so yes,
yeah.
right, mid-90s.
Jeez.
And so it was just wonderful. So that was one of the first ones, and I found other people who felt like I did, you know, and who I could kind of talk to and identify with. Okay, hold on.
You're the chef here. So.
I know, that's okay. You can tell you work in a commercial kitchen where you can't just walk away from things that are on fire. So the other place that I found was People Called Women.
Okay.
And Toledo is has one of only 13 feminist bookstores in the United States.
Oh, wow.
And that's called People Called Women. And again, you know, you don't have to have a, you know, specific agenda. You don't have to have a point of view. Some people are lesbian, some people were not, some people were in college, some people were 60 years old, some people were, they used to have an event every year called People Called Girls, and they would have just like girls artwork and crafts, and it was a little like silent auction for these different, it was great. I look forward to it every year. And so coming in from out of town in this, you know, dark, unwelcoming Toledo landscape, I found these places that it was as if it was everything that I enjoyed. Everything I enjoyed from Antioch, everything I enjoyed from San Francisco, right here. So that was huge. That was, you know, and what's funny is the San Francisco has everything, but it doesn't really need you.
Yeah.
So, as much as I loved San Francisco, I didn't really find what I needed to be doing there.
Yeah. You
at
feel
all.
like what you do here is a lot more important.
Oh my gosh, you can really make a difference.
So now, what kinds of things are you currently involved in?
Oh gosh, so from there, then like, you know, I went to college and I started my life. I mean, like I got married, I have children, you know, this is 20 years later, so a lot has happened. But a lot of the people that I met at that time are still here. Mm-hmm. And so they went from these things where they were active in the community, and they still are. Mm-hmm. And that's another part of Toledo that makes a huge difference. There's sort of this foundation of people who over time stay and do things and are a part of it. And they don't have to lead everything, but they're involved. So I've been involved in a number of things. This is actually off, so don't get worried. But I've been involved in a number of things over, over the years. But the things that I've been consistently involved in the past few years, for arts, and there's just an explosion of arts, programming and opportunities in Toledo in the last 5 to 10 years. It's fantastic. It's a fantastic time to live here. But in the arts, just to be a part of poetry programming, working with the library system, they are happy to have people who have proposals for events. And I'm a pushy person, so I show up and I have, you know, hey, you know what you should do?
You work with the newspapers as well, correct?
I work with Toledo Streets newspaper, which is a nonprofit that supports people who are on the verge of homelessness or homeless. And it's a really unique program. A lot of cities have a streets newspaper.
Yeah,
Cleveland and Columbus. Yeah, well, right. Yeah, that's a weekly.
Yeah.
Right. So some are more advanced than others. We're monthly, but we're up to 20 pages, and we've had incredible growth in the last few years. Okay. And it's in part because we have a really solid model. We've had a lot of successes. And there are some parts of it that are fairly simple. Mm-hmm. The idea is there's a newspaper every month, and they're called vendors, but the people we serve, who we work with, come in and they get 10 free papers every month. So everybody has something they can start with. Okay. The value of the paper is $1. Okay. So that's what, you know, somebody coming up and buying a paper would pay. Oh, see, this is smaller. I think I'm going to go with this pan then.
Okay.
Yeah. I got fajita size instead of burrito size. So, different pan, but I need to grease it.
Okay. So we're greasing the pan here. We're just going to add the beets here in a minute, or?
You know what? I end up just kind of layering it all.
Okay.
So I grease the pan, and I do, because I'm a poor person, I save my butter wrappers, and that's what I grease stuff with. Yeah. Okay, hold on, I got more like that. For soup, whenever we have vegetable peelings,
stock.
we save them for soup stock. Here's our chicken bones.
Oh, wow.
We have shrimp tails in here, so we make stock from all of that. This is how you get to have children in a house and also be an artist.
Yeah. So
what are we doing?
With the newspaper.
So with the newspaper.
So they get 10 copies.
So they get 10 copies free every month. And then beyond that, if they want more copies, they pay a quarter. Okay. But the value of it is $1. So when they sell it, they get $1. You can also give them more, and on average, they do average more than $1.
Okay.
And
so they go
money that
they go door to door, or they go.
No, but they do. They do not have to get individual vendors' licenses that other people would. The City of Toledo, we've worked with the City of Toledo, and they have very kindly understood that this is a very positive thing. We want this to be a model, and we have a vendor's code of conduct. So, this is not begging. This is, I have a thing for sale. This is my store. If you want to ask me questions, if you want to shake my hand, I might have a story in it.
So what kind of content is there then?
There is a focus. Well, it can be anything, but generally it's a monthly paper. So this is not necessarily hard-hitting news because of the timeliness. Usually community focus, things that have to do with poverty or civil rights.
Okay.
Change in the community, opportunity in the community, things like that. And frankly, right now, I lead the vendor writer program. And those vendors who are interested in writing articles, we work with them, we pay them to write the articles. So it can be driven by what they want to write. If they have something that they are interested in. In fact, we had a recent series that was about Bitcoin. I don't know anything about Bitcoin.
I know some stuff.
But we had one writer in particular who is very technologically savvy and who was very interested in it and did some research and wrote a series of articles about it. Okay. So it can come from anywhere. So whatever they're interested in, we want to see them succeed. Okay, so we put our crust in, we have our greens, we're going to put our greens into the...
Okay, and this has got the brown garlic in it, it's got some oil.
I could probably put seasonings in it, but I never do.
Yeah.
I don't.
Salt, pepper.
I'm not a huge salt, pepper fan.
To be honest with you, I wasn't either.
Other people use salt so much more than I do, but I will put a little.
I actually got yelled at in culinary school.
No, you have to.
I know. They told me that. I was raised without salt at the table.
Yeah, probably because your dad had high blood pressure. Yeah. So
I went off to culinary school and
they're pushing it.
And
I don't know. Well, also, I don't have to sell this to you. You're going to eat it no matter what. Oh, so that's the difference, right? In the household. Okay, so I cut up some beets. And I'm going to put them in, and we're just going to see how much that looks like.
Yeah, that's a good size, actually. Like, I noticed, like, you cut them pretty small. So that way when
really, you
when
just
they
want
cook
color
up,
and a little
they get the whole...
something. And then, let's get some goat cheese. Goat cheese, you can't cut it. You can't... You just crumble it, and it gets everywhere. So, that's what happens. So, I might not use all of that.
We've got about half an inch here of filling with the beets, with the greens, everything, and we're going to add some goat cheese here. Then we're going to add some egg to it.
And then we'll do our egg thing. And my eggs, I mean, that's simple too. I add a little milk.
Do you use the uncooked tortillas for anything else, or? Like.
I probably could. I don't. For a while, well, to be honest, I stopped working for a few months, for about 6 months, and so I made quiche every week.
Oh, wow.
I mean, right. Because it was just me, and that's what I eat for breakfast.
Yeah.
So I have made many variations on quiche.
Oh, quiche, yeah. Okay.
And like you can do this, but add mushrooms.
Oh, yeah.
And stuff like that. We could do that right now if you'd like.
No, I'm good.
I have mushrooms. Okay, all right. Because it's back to that earthy thing. There are all kinds of flavors that go together.
Stuff, yeah.
Carrots. I tried this with shredded carrots, which was okay, but it didn't really add much.
Okay.
I mean, it didn't taste like much else.
Yeah.
And this isn't going to be huge. Sometimes I have just a ton of ingredients, so that if it's just me, I don't want to have more than 6 eggs in there.
Right.
Because I'm going to eat half of it.
Right. Well, I mean,
you know what I mean?
Consider, because you're going to cook this on a low setting, correct?
350.
350? Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
what do you do?
Well, in the kitchens, usually we put it lower so that it cooks through the center. And, sometimes when you make custards too, especially, you have to put like water in a water bath.
Yeah, right. Uh-huh.
Just because it'll burn the outside of it and stuff like that. But, yeah. I just was curious.
I have not had a problem, but I don't make them very thick.
Yeah.
So that might be part of it. And then when I have that thing on top, doesn't matter if it gets crispy. So,
problem solved.
Genius.
Yeah.
Genius about this.
So let's get the eggs out.
I need some eggs, yeah. And I have tons of eggs, so let's just get out. So yeah, Toledo Streets newspaper is something that I've worked with for a long time. For a while I was a poetry editor, and that just meant I was responsible for a couple pages of content, and whichever vendors are interested in poetry, just sort of promoting that. Then I was on the board for a while. Didn't seem to be very helpful there. And then I got involved in the writers program, and which I really enjoy. Unfortunately, I've gone back to work, and so that's kind of cutting into my ability to be at the newspaper office and work with.
So do you mostly like mentor other writers a lot, or is it
it's
give and take?
Sort of that idea. With this, it's that idea. So Streets newspaper is something that I've been involved in, and I want it to do well.
Okay.
Another thing, so there are some things that are literary, and then there are some things that are community. So
and some things that are both.
And this is the thing that crosses over to both, really.
Yeah.
I got to get past you to get a bowl real quick. This is good. So, as far as just community, for the past 3.5 years, I have been involved in something called Sylvania Avenue Neighbors, which is a place-based 501c3 that really focuses on arts, accessibility, walkability,
exposure.
Just general, like, it's Friday night, and you get home from work, and you want to do something. What do?
Right.
You should probably walk out your door and go to something that you walk to. That's what you should live in that neighborhood. I live in that neighborhood that could do that we could do it, but people don't. They get in their car and they drive to the suburbs. And you go, no, we have parks, we have the library, we have a candy store, we have a coffee shop, we have things. If you just stay, they will stay, and they'll get better, and other people will open other things, or you might have an interest and you could open a store. But people have to retrain themselves not to stare at screens, not to look for other people to entertain them, but for them to entertain themselves and each other.
Be creative about it.
Yeah, just like hang out in your own neighborhood a little. So we started that, or that was started a few years ago when I got involved. In 2014, I believe that's correct. Yeah, 2014, I was doing the annual 100,000 Poets for Change, which is like a poetry and social change event. Once a year, it's like the last weekend in September every year. Michael Rothenberg in San Francisco started this, fantastic. I believe it's in its 7th year this year, but that was our 4th year. And I found out about these people in the neighborhood, doing this, Sylvania Avenue Neighbors. I said, hey, I'd really like to have 100,000 Poets for Change on the lawn in front of the library.
Yeah.
I'd like it to be in my neighborhood and have real people come out and see it. And we did it. We had an all-day poetry event out on the green.
So how did you petition the library for that? Or
the library doesn't own the land. Actually,
Okay.
it's city land.
Okay.
And this is an important civics lesson. City land is accessible to regular people.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to go find your Parks and Rec office, fill out a form, get a permit.
Okay.
You have to have event insurance, which is maybe $100, maybe $120. And that's it.
Okay.
That can be it.
Yep.
This was the whole point, and this is sort of a recurring theme with this whole community, working in the community thing, is that don't wait for institutions to provide things for you. If you
Right.
can. I mean, I'm not making a Republican statement here by any
Okay.
means. What I'm making is, if you want something, it could be possible that you could do it. Just
Right.
by yourself.
Self-starting, yeah.
There are public spaces that are available to you, but nobody's telling you that. Like, you just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So start asking.
Okay.
Start
Looking at
go
the
out.
past
Yeah,
questions,
don't wait for, and we have a lovely arts commission that does a lot of work here.
Mm-hmm.
But we get a lot done in conjunction with or just outside of them.
Mm-hmm.
You can do both. In fact, that is a really robust arts community
Yeah.
where people are doing their own thing and the arts commission is also working on stuff.
Okay.
So having this group, and here's our compost bin.
Oh, there you go.
Sylvania Avenue Neighbors, we had our reading on the lawn, and it was delightful. It worked out really well. I'm going to put 5 in here, but I'm going to go with 6.
Okay.
But I hate to use more than 6 because then it's just this like eggy thing,
Yeah.
you know?
Do you water down a little bit? I was wondering.
I do. Usually I have half and half.
Okay.
But I thought
Yeah,
we
we'll
might
see.
get crazy with some heavy
Oh, wow.
whipping cream. Is that crazy?
That is crazy.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
What's going to happen?
I don't know. We'll
Anything
find
could
out.
happen. Let's do it. Let's
Okay.
try. Okay. Let's see if I can open that thing. Okay, I can. Okay, just a little. That is crazy,
Yeah,
isn't
just
it?
a bit.
Yeah. That's just, that's awfully thick. We're going to go with just a tiny bit of, yeah, that's, it, honestly, I used to be against adding milk to eggs, and like scrambled eggs, I wouldn't do it.
Uh-huh.
But it does make it more like an even
Yeah. Yeah, just
golden thing instead of like dark yellow here and then lighter there. Yeah, just the right amount.
that's perfect. Covers it
Okay.
all.
Okay. I mean, and this is not going to be earth-shattering quiche by any means.
No, we're
It
good.
is just a nice, edible, you know.
Okay, so that's the top layer then?
And then we put the top layer, right?
And we've got our ovens preheated.
It is preheated. I got antsy because I cannot sit still, ever.
Okay.
And I started, sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
I started an apple pie, and we'll see how our pie is doing.
Oh, wow.
Okay, well, let's see. It looks all right.
Do you want to put that in with it, or
I
do you
think
want to?
so. I think so.
Okay.
I don't feel like the pie is done yet. We're gonna put our quiche. It's not gonna be a huge quiche. If I wanted a bigger quiche, I would have had more stuff in it.
Yeah.
I definitely like it to have as much contents as possible.
Okay. Make it as much of a meal as you can. Yeah.
And not eggs, other stuff. Like that's what I like. I like it to be a vehicle. It's sort of like the soup thing, you know.
Yeah.
I love soup because really with soup you can do anything. Here's leavings of this or something else there, or a handful of rice or whatever.
Okay, so we're gonna let this cook a little bit. It's at 350. How long do you cook it usually? Like 15, 20 minutes?
No,
No?
it's probably more like
12?
35.
35? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, 35, she says.
You have it at a lower temperature and it cooks in 15 minutes?
No.
Oh, okay, all right.
I'm just saying because of the 350.
Okay,
I figured.
all
Okay.
right.
We're good. So we're gonna let this cook a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sit down with Johnny at the table, and we're gonna talk a little bit more about community activism, as far as for creative people, for artists, for writers, and how she's kind of found her niche here in Toledo. Thank you, everybody. Hi, everybody. I'm back here with Jonie McIntire. We're talking about community involvement in the arts, arts activism. Some of her backstory and some of her publications. Now, we first met at the Morgan.
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
You came to Cleveland. The Morgan's another nonprofit. Mm-hmm. You came to read in Cleveland with Carrie.
Carrie Troutman.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't have much experience as far as nonprofits, except the Morgan, which is an art conservatory. Mm-hmm. I've done some work with ESLGD in literacy tutoring, but I just wondered, have you ever, or do you, run any of your own nonprofits?
Well, I am involved in, we had talked earlier about Toledo Streets newspaper. That is nonprofit, and I was on the board of directors for a while. I have never started a nonprofit, but Sylvania Avenue Neighbors, which is the place-based 501c3, I have been involved in that as a treasurer and for about 3 years. And then most recently, I've become the president of it in the last couple of months. And that's one where we're really just trying to build, you know, show of support for your own neighborhood, you know, getting active in your community, but in ways that are all positive. Let's not worry about what is potentially negative in a there are always negative elements to a neighborhood, but we stay and we're happy to, and we want to focus on that.
We had an issue with one of the pets here, one of the doggies, so go ahead, Johnny.
Okay, so I'm involved in that nonprofit, but actually what I think is interesting is that, you know, nonprofits, and in Toledo we have an incredible amount of nonprofits that have been started. There's a lot that you can do within them, which is fantastic. There's also a lot you can do not starting your own nonprofit. So that first year that we had, and in fact, every year that 100,000 Poets for Change started, the first 5 years, we had events. We didn't have a nonprofit for it. It didn't fall under anything. It was just me and some poets having an event. A lot of the events that I'm involved in don't fall under a nonprofit.
Right.
They don't get anything like that. And I might be doing it wrong, but usually I find it's even easier. In fact, I think if you have a nonprofit, you need to have a mission statement, you need to have a board of directors, there's a lot of oversight, and that makes a lot of sense. And if, you know, let's say, and this is a dream of mine, let's say we started an annual writing retreat in Toledo. Mm-hmm. That's going to take money. It's going to take oversight. It's going to take marketing. That would be something that you would want a nonprofit for. You know, there's just a lot of paperwork involved. Yeah. So for big projects like that,
or like a residency, or
a residency program is what we need. Oh my gosh. And so for something like that, you would need the structure that a nonprofit provides. But there's a lot you can do as an individual, just like a person who likes to be in the room and likes to write poetry or listen to poetry or be around people who do art or whatever. You don't need to have a nonprofit. You just need to talk to people and then find a place where you can meet. Now
you run, there's a couple reading series you run here in Toledo.
I do. And actually, they're really successful. I'm really proud of them. One is called Poetry Uncloistered, or Uncloistered Poetry.
That's the one I came up with?
Yes, you read as a part of that.
Yep, that was a big event.
Yes.
That was huge. That was
It
great.
does really well,
Yeah.
and it actually is a monthly series.
That was a wine bar, right?
It is at Calvino's. And we don't, I did receive a grant, an accelerator grant from the Arts Commission of Greater Toledo. And I absolutely, again, I didn't need to have a nonprofit to get that grant. Mm-hmm. I just needed to have a plan. Mm-hmm. So if you have an idea, you can go for it. You just have to flesh out what the idea is. So the good thing about that Calvino's reading, the Uncloistered Poetry series, is that it started actually a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. And it started with the release of my first book, of my first chapbook. Aww. And another woman in this area, Cindy Bosley, she also had a book from Finishing Line Press coming out at the same time. So we had our we're going to have our book releases at the same time. Yeah.
Okay. Now that would be this one here? Right?
Yeah.
Not All Who Wander Are Lost?
Yeah, that's right. And actually on the cover of it, that's me in the picture.
Oh, wow.
And there's a friend of ours who's prominent in the picture. His name's John Swale. I had talked before about how when I first moved to Toledo, there were these groups that really kind of, made me feel at home and showed me the city, and I felt good about it. And through the course of time, I went to college and I joined this writing group, and it was Almeida Street Poets, and that is actually where I found, I met my husband, and we've been married for almost 19 years. And I met Carrie Troutman, I met John Swale, I met Mike Hackney, I met Mike Kaczynski, who was once an owner of Calvino's. People who, as it turns out, and this is what you find in community, they ended up being sort of my artistic family.
The support.
Yeah, we had a writing group, and we met in Lori's house on Almeida Street. Yeah. And from there, so there are these turning points, in your life, and that actually meeting that group was a big turning point. That's when I started going into poetry, and 20 years later, I still get to work with some of those same people. Oh, so yeah. Mm-hmm.
Must be so grateful.
Yeah.
So aside from the poetry and cloistered, the grant that you got, mm-hmm. how technical was the application for that, or No,
that's a really good question. So here's something that I have found. I don't send out a lot of submissions for poetry. I'll admit, I like the events, I like being in the room, but I'm not one who focuses on publication. Mm-hmm. But same with grants, same with submissions. Read the guidelines, understand what the guidelines are, ask questions, because I've known more people who didn't get entered into the contest, didn't get the grant money not because their idea was not good, but because they didn't articulate it well. You have to account for the dollars, so be very clear about that. Make sure you follow the rules.
Now, how did you hear about the grant? Just word of mouth, or
you know what? The Arts Commission, they do a pretty good job of trying to reach out to artists, but it's the same in any city. Artists really bear the brunt of trying to find information. It's not easy to get information about arts. You really have to go seek it. But no matter where you are, you know, if you just kind of Google Arts Commission of and pick a city that you're in or near, see if there's something. Ohio Poetry Association. So in the state of Ohio, Ohio Poetry Association might be a place to start. OPA. OPA.
Well, there's OAC in there too.
Ohio Arts Council.
Yeah.
That's right. Ohio Arts Council is another one. And I have actually, you know, sort of Googled just grants, like arts grants, writing grants, you know, different things, because I do have that writer in residence. Yeah. In the long term, I think that is really what the city needs is we need to make ourselves a destination. Yeah. You know, and we're working on it. We're getting there. I'm actually going to talk just for a minute about these series that I have. Okay. So I actually have more than one series of readings. That Calvino's reading, the uncloistered poetry reading, that's been going for a couple of years. And we have visiting artists who are featured readers, and then we have an open mic. So we have a nice, the whole point is that we share a stage. Mm-hmm. And while I have grant money, I can pay people. So that attracts people, and it also elevates the people who are here, who are features, and you get paid. And look, that's what professionals do, you know? Yeah. Poets don't get that very much. The other series, I have another series, and it's called Art and Soul Poetry. And in the same little shopping plaza, on the other side of it, is a little art gallery, and all local artists. And that's where we staged that reading. And Art and Soul is the last Friday of every month. Shameless plug, in May we're going to have Sean Thomas Dougherty, so I'm very excited about that. And we've had a lot of, again, just like at the uncloistered reading, we've had a lot of people visit, like you visited. We've had a lot of people visit. We're starting to do that with Art and Soul as well. So, and that one is just 2 featured poets and then no open mic. Okay. So you have a little bit of a different experience. Book sales and... Absolutely. Whoever visits can sell their stuff. Yeah. When it started, the Art and Soul, when it started, I had a friend who had a printing press, and I thought, ooh, we can have little art projects every time and broadsides, and that it was an extra layer of effort that it wasn't really going to pan out. So so we didn't continue that, but the series itself has done really well. Good. And you know, the Calvino's readings regularly get 40 or more people at them. So it fills the restaurant, and they only open for us, so it's nice. We've got a closed set, you know? Yeah. Art and Soul, same thing. It's after their normal hours. And that one is a smaller venue, so it can't really, it doesn't serve food, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it appeals differently. But that one, we regularly get about 20. So, and with only 2 featured readers, how often does that happen at a poetry reading, you know? So, so our, 20 years ago in Toledo was kind of a quiet town. We like I said, we really have a lot of arts going on, but it's because artists get out and start things and do things. Well, to talk, to kind of turn the conversation a little bit, and I want to talk about a little bit more about your artist side, your writing stuff. We have 2 chapbooks here. Now, one we talked about a little bit, The Finishing Line. We also have the Night Ballet book. Now, what kind of stuff inspires you when you write, when you know? Well, this book in particular is more of a cityscape. Okay. So there were the Arts Commission put on a number of different contests. One was writing poems that would fit on a sidewalk, and then they stamp it into the sidewalk. Oh, wow. And so I won a couple of those. So there are 2 sidewalks that have my poems stamped in them, and there's one more that's to be stamped at a later date. So those were in here. It was really kind of a combination of things like that. There's another series that happens every year. It's called Ode to the Zip Code. And that is a contest that they have a major reading on 419, because we're in 419 Toledo. So that's coming up next week. So that's an exciting thing. And I was a runner-up in that. So it's really a collection of those kinds of things, and then some other ones that I had written for the 100,000 Poets for Change that were focused on Toledo in particular. So what really excites me about that book is that I got a chance to work with Diane Borzenik, and who runs Night Ballet Press, and
she's from Cleveland.
She's in Cleveland.
Yeah, for people that don't know. Yeah.
She is so full of energy.
Yeah, she's spunky.
She is so full of energy. And what really impressed, I got to tell you this story, and I'll make it really quick. She came to Toledo as part of a Women Unbound series. Another couple of gals who ran a reading series, a monthly series, at one of the branch libraries. It was really well received. They did a great job. Lorraine Cipriano and Kayla Williams ran that. And they had a bit of a small press presentation. So John Burroughs, who you're going to talk to next month. Yeah. Diane Borzenik. Oh gosh. I should have pulled this information up. Writing Nights Press. I can't remember his name.
Oh, I'm not familiar.
Oh gosh, really nice guy. Writing Nights Press, and Juliet Cook, who, oh gosh, I can't think of her name, or of the name of her.
Blood Pudding.
Blood Pudding.
Yep.
Thank you. They were all on this panel, and they talked about their different presses, and it was very interesting. It was lovely because it was just a really interesting. John can go into that more, but it was a really lovely presentation of different styles of handling your own press, and I listened to everybody, and they're all very good. Really good stuff coming out of these presses. Ohio is the place to be, but. Diane talked, and she went, okay, listen, I pick the graphic, I pick the color, I pick the paper, I pick you take it, I do my job, you do your job. And I went, oh my God, she is lovely. That is someone I want to work with. It's the mailman. Oh, okay. That's what it is. My dog.
Let's interview him.
That is, yes, exactly.
So anyway.
So that was it. So I was just so excited to work with Diane because I knew that whatever I hand over, whatever I'm working with, she knows what she's talking about. She's going to put it together. So it was really exciting to have somebody who would kind of work with you. Yeah, who was a little closer. Finishing line was lovely. They put out a really good product. They run some nice contests and stuff. But it's not the same. You don't have that relationship building, and that I think was a really strong thing about. And this is part of the community too. Yeah. Community building is not just within your writing group, which building that community is huge, but beyond that, your city, and then beyond that, forming these relationships from Toledo to Cleveland, from people who meet at one reading and then follow up with each other later. That's building community also. So
okay. Well, Johnny, I appreciate all the time you spent with us today. We're going to be eating the quiche here pretty soon.
Yeah.
Okay. Real quick, I want to show you guys. This is a copy of the newspaper that Johnny contributes to, that she mentors with, the writers. Here you can see the Bitcoin article she was talking about earlier. But this is a pretty elaborate production. And Honestly, I think personally, it's this kind of commitment and activism in the community that really starts to change people's lives. That really gives vibrance to the diversity in a neighborhood or anywhere else. And anything else you want to add, Johnny?
Really, just don't be afraid to go out to a reading that you wouldn't normally go to. Maybe you don't like you don't know what spoken word is. Go to it.
Yeah.
Just go see. Go to stuff. Try things, because really, it does open doors. It changes. Yeah. You see something new, and don't wait for somebody else to bring it to you. If you feel like, I really love chess, and I would love to start teaching kids how to play chess. Go to the library and talk to the librarians and see if they would let you, if they would help advertise it. Yeah. A lot of things are built from a person's interest. So your excitement about something is what builds the thing that comes from it. So just get out and talk about the things you enjoy and meet other people. And then don't be afraid to throw a poetry party, and maybe nobody shows up.
Yeah.
Maybe 3 people show up. But I'll tell you what, those 3 people might be your best friends 20 years later. Yeah. So that is how you start your community.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Well, we'll be back next month with John Burroughs up in Cleveland. He's going to be speaking about how to start a small press, how to run a small press, the pros, the cons, that sort of thing. We'll be checking in with him in May. As far as this month, it's a wrap. So, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.